Hi guys, I'm Shmi and welcome to Le Mans, where today's video, I'm afraid you're going to have to put up with an awful lot of background race car noise as the track is just there. But as you know, I'm out here with Esso and Porsche and I've been driving in the 911 Carrera. In fact, I made my journey to Le Mans from Paris just yesterday, got down here ready for the race to start, which is now underway. And one of the craziest things is that by the time this video is filmed, edited and uploaded tomorrow, that race is still going to be going on. It's a 24-hour race. We're going to see how it goes. Porsche, of course, entered into the LMP1 class with the 919 hybrid and into the GTE class with the new 911 RSR that we're going to take a full look at and show you tomorrow. So stay tuned for that. But today has to be about this car and has to be about the 911. Now, I've not owned a 911, but I think pretty much every sports car sort of fan has owned or driven one at some point. And this, the Carrera, is kind of the entry-level model, although this car has quite a nice specification. So I'm going to show you around the car, talk a bit about it, we'll take it out for a drive and see what it's all about, because this is the new car, the new 991.2, the facelift, the updated model. So let's have a walk around right now, talk about the car and what it's all about. So 911s, road-going 911s, always have a rear engine. This has the twin-turbocharged unit, the 3-litre flat-6 twin-turbo. And that gives it 370 horsepower, 450 Newton meters, with the power coming through the rear wheels. Now, as I walk around to the front, one thing to talk about, if you can hear me over all the noise, is the different models of 911, because there are a lot of them. So the base model, the Carrera, then the Carrera S, then you can have the 4 or the 4S, which are both all-wheel drive versions of the car. Then you've got the GTS, which is a bit sportier. Then you've also got the Turbo and the Turbo S, and you've got the GT3, the GT3 RS, and the new GT2 RS. And many of those versions can be had as a Coupe, a Convertible, or a Targa. So basically it's something like 25 different versions of 911, but this is where it starts. The rear-wheel drive car, this one has the 7-speed PDK double-clutch gearbox. You can also have it optionally with a 7-speed manual, which is available in a good number of the different cars. So the new GT3 even also has the manual with the 4-litre flat-6. This being slightly smaller engine, obviously the 3-litre twin-turboed unit rather than the naturally aspirated unit. But it's a traditional shape, it's not really changed much. The model has existed now for over half a century. This is the 7th generation, this is the facelifted version of that 7th generation. It has those immediately sort of distinct look through the headlights, through the shape of the roof line, and obviously by having the engine at the rear gives it that kind of hatch, fastback sort of coupe look too. So, cosmetically on this, you've got a slightly new look to the lower bumpers versus the pre-facelift model with these exhaust tailpipes, the two just separated slightly in the middle. You've also got extra cooling through these fins on this rear deck, which is also a sort of traditional thing. Some of the older cars had that look to them as well. Around at the front, we've got the optional Carrera Classic wheels, which look good in my mind, and again at the front, just slightly reworked to give it a new look if you're sort of really looking at the finer details. Now, please excuse the fact that the car is not perfectly clean, because we're parked in the car park at Le Mans. Obviously, I've driven the car from Paris to get here in the first place, and currently enjoying the race weekend and everything that's going on. But I'm going to take this out on the road for a drive, because the 911, like I said, is really one of the most iconic sports cars, if not the most iconic sports car. They have sold over 1 million 911s. 1 million, and the special 1 millionth was a nice sort of dark green for Dr. Porsche. But this is such a car with so much history. But what is all of that about? And I guess, why should I have one in my life at some point? Why should people buy a 911 if they're into the sports car world? So let's jump in right now, take a quick look at the interior, and again, please excuse me for the very much road trip state of the car right now. But you can see this one's nicely spec'd with the 18-way adaptive sports seats, the GT steering wheel. And if we step in, it's got a new updated entertainment system for the .2, which is all just a little bit cleaner and easier to press these buttons, 7-speed PDK. But when we come back, we'll have a better look around at all of this. So the key, in a traditional Porsche style, still very much in at the left. Fire it up, and then the air conditioning can blow at me because it is really rather hot here in Le Mans. It's a boiling day. I can't imagine what it's like for the drivers wearing a race suit in this heat. But for now, I'm gonna let the air conditioning run for a bit. Oh, that's so nice. And then we'll be on the road, go and drive this car and see what it's all about. And we're finally away from Le Mans. As you can imagine, with hundreds of thousands of people watching the race, the local roads get pretty congested, but I'm heading away to go and find some nice roads to drive with hopefully not too many cars on them. So I'm driving at the moment in the most normal of normal, basic, standard settings. So the new drive mode selector on the steering wheel that's been introduced with the .2 facelift has normal, sport, sport plus, and then individual if you turn it all the way around. And it also has a button in the center to give you even more power for a short period of time. You get 20 seconds. So that's a nice little touch if you want to get the most out of it. The sport plus button, which is what will give you 0 to 62 miles an hour, 100 kilometers an hour in 4.2 seconds, and will give you a top speed of 293 kilometers an hour. So normal mode, normal PDK mode, so the 7-speed gearbox just doing its thing. It's super gentle and smooth. As you expect, this gearbox is wonderful in every configuration. You've also got settings for PASM, which is Porsche's suspension settings, so you can put that into a firmer setting. We've got the rear wing if we want to put that up. We've got the exhaust if you want to open that up, and then start-stop if you want to stopping the engine when you come to a standstill. But that's what helps with the better economy figures, emissions, etc., which is obviously a good thing overall. So driving along like this, super easy, super gentle. We've got Porsche's electric steering, which was slightly funny at first, but is developing and growing, and in theory is pretty much right up there with the traditional setup. You won't really ever be able to notice a difference. Driving along like I am right now in the automatic mode, it is obviously going to be in 7th gear even at slow speeds. It will keep the car in the most efficient gear it can. You probably want it in lower gears if you want to have some fun, but let's turn onto a road that looks a little bit bumpy, which will be an interesting test for the suspension. And it rides over things in a very, very supple way, smooth, gentle and easy. But if we turn it up to sport mode, it will drop the gearbox and open up the exhaust if it wasn't already, and it basically becomes a little bit more fun, a little bit more characterful. But this car, remember, is a car that is so famed and accredited for its ability to use it in all kind of environments, to use it as a sports car, to use it as an everyday car, to use it in the city, to use it on the motorway, in every kind of environment. And then in this mode, if we also push the gear stick to the left, go manual on the paddles, we can blip it down, hear a little bit of the crackles and burbles from the exhaust, and feel a little bit of the power. And 350 horsepower is not a huge amount. The Carrera S has a bit more, but this is not a very, very quick car. It is a car that is very, very well set up though, and Porsche have a habit of doing this. They build these cars that just have everything so nicely balanced between the suspension, the powertrain, the chassis, the steering, and the whole setup of it. And like I said, this is a rough road, but the car is just riding it as if it's nothing, to be honest. Cruising along, 4th gear now, but you can downshift and shift so quickly, and then you get those crackles, which are just super nice to follow up from that. And then if you do put your foot down, he says, just waiting for a straight to do so, you can hear a good bit of noise coming into the cabin, and it pulls away pretty neatly. So driving like this, pretty nice. We'll put it back into automatic and go up to Sport Plus mode. Now, my initial impression of Sport Plus is basically it keeps you in an even lower gear than you could ever realistically want to be in. And that is designed, obviously, to go around a racetrack or for a seriously spirited drive. So driving like this, I feel a little bit antisocial in 2nd gear at 4,000 RPM when I don't need to be. Speaking of which, peak power at 6,500 RPM, top end of the engine rev range is at about 7.5. But one of the most interesting things is, even though this car is twin turbocharged, it doesn't really feel it. It feels really quite naturally aspirated for a turbocharged engine. So I don't know how they've done that or what sort of magic wonders they've achieved, but they've done it. And then away we go again. Shifted up slightly earlier than I wanted it to, but sounds good, drives well. I mean, I'm not turning it obviously into corners massively aggressively here, but it does sort of feel surprisingly, well, not surprisingly, it should be good, but it does feel very good, very planted, very in control. Right over some rail track bumps, and around we go. Nice sort of steering lock. You can go around a 90-degree turn without having to take your hands off the wheel, which is a bit of that sort of sporty characteristic. Then foot down, and it picks up. Let's go back manual on the paddles. It's not a shift for me. Turn it into some pretty tight corners here. Nose in, and away we go. Roads around here are lovely, that has to be said. So off we go. Nice, clear, open view. That'll do. Nice little burst of acceleration, so there's not too much noise. We've got a very well equipped steering wheel, interior, including the steering wheel, so the options on this car are really quite nice, and the GT steering wheel has this kind of very open effect, even though it means you do lose the controls for your audio and your telephone and all of that kind of stuff. Cruise control is on a separate stalk. Your menu settings, if you want to go through on the dashboard display, is on the right hand side. Lights and wipers up here behind the paddles. Sorry, lights left, wipers right. And the paddles, small little sort of switches on the back almost, kind of paddles attached to the steering wheel. Yeah, so generally driving, these seats, the 18-way adaptive seats, same seats actually I used to have in my Cayman GT4, 18 ways of movement, and I was trying to work out what all of these 18 ways are. So you can move the front bit of the rest forwards and backwards, you can move the front of the seat up and down, the back of the seat up and down, the whole seat forwards and backwards. So on 8, the seat back forwards and backwards, then you've got 4 different parts of the lumbar, and then you've got the side bolsters on the base and the side bolsters on the back. So you've got 18 ways of movement in the seat. So if you can't get yourself comfortable, you're doing something wrong. Basically, they are really supportive and very, very, very good seats for the purpose. Other than that, 2+2 configuration, so not a huge amount of space in the back if you were planning on having a passenger back there. Maybe some small kids, that kind of thing, but you're not going to fit a grown adult at all. Don't even try. I'll show you the back when we pull over shortly. But general driving, it's a car that just drives really nicely, and that's what the 911 is supposed to do. It's what I felt about my GT4. Porsche built these cars. They're so well built, so refined overall. They are reliable, they are consistent, you know what to expect, you know what you're going to get, and they drive so well as well. It's this balance of everything in one car that has made them so sort of renowned for the purpose, and each time they introduce a new model, it does everything perfectly, and there is such a wide range that you can have literally exactly what you want out of it. There's no sort of panicking about something not being quite right, just order a different one. I'm in the sort of firmer suspension mode by being in Sport Plus, and it is a little bit firmer, so you can either put that back into Sport, or you can press the button in the center console. But when we cross the rail track in a moment, it will be time to try the Sport Plus button. Actually, for that I should probably put it back into Sport Plus again, to be honest. But down we go. This is a really nice road, enjoying it. It's peaceful, oh, a bit bumpy. Oh, here we go. Nose ride's fine, not too low and irritating, which it could easily have a problem with, of course, but in here, no issue. As we get some more burbles. Okay, so here, back into Sport Plus first, and press the button, and 20 seconds of Sport response, and it just makes it a little bit faster than it was before as well, which is kind of cool. And then you press the button again to stop it, and I guess it rebuilds the amount of boost you're going to get extra. But yes, it's a fun car to be driving. It's been a great car, to be honest, in the different environments that I've driven it, around Paris, round on the auto routes, and now on some nice twisty roads too. The thing I would say is that it's too perfect, and that's a weird sort of concept, that something could be too perfect, but it kind of, you get a little bit of fun out of things that are a little bit quirky, a little bit unusual, where in here everything is textbook, everything is completely clinical. The steering still feels a little bit funny to me, I can't quite put my finger on it, and I would like it if it made a bit more noise too. You've probably seen the cup holders before. Cup holders in here massively over-engineered, not necessary. And still, even with the new system here, with the gear stick, it's a little bit fiddly to get to the climate control. You've got to go around it. So there are some quirks. There are some unusual things that they put in here that don't necessarily make sense. But you have to look at it as a whole package, he says, as he's bumping around everywhere with the suspension in firm mode. So you can keep it in Sport Plus, but still soften that. As a whole package, it does a rather wonderful job, and I would be very unfair if in any way I discredited it, really. The 911, the new generation, the new facelift of the 911. Porsche do it again, really, don't they? They just make a car that's too brilliant. Is that the problem with it? And that is basically, I think, why everybody pretty much needs a 911 in their life at some point, to try to own, to experience the engine hanging out the back, probably to try and have a play with it at some point. We're not going to be doing that today, but this kind of driving, I think one of the only things probably is it doesn't sound like I'm accelerating very hard because there's not a huge amount of noise coming from it. But that's how it is. What happens if we open a window? Away we go. Sport response again. It's fun that you have that option. You have like ability to play it. It's very kind of motorsport. It's like a push to pass. If you want to overtake somebody, give it a little bit more power. Anywho, I've probably rambled on a fairly long time, but I've been quite enjoying this. I wanted to share my kind of thoughts of the car. It's not, it's not a Bugatti or a Lamborghini. It's not trying to be that kind of car. It's trying to be the one car for everything, and you start to understand why when you start to drive it and start to experience it. Perhaps you could do with a little bit more luggage space. Obviously the engine in the back takes away all that space, but it's a 911, it's tried and tested, and it does the job very, very well. Back in the car park, and unfortunately for me, even though a lot of cars have already left, you still have to park right to the back. So I'm parked a lot further away than I started earlier this morning, but let's have a look around the interior here of the 911, and I'll show you basically all the way through it, what you might not know, what you might know. And for example, we'll start right here with the dashboard. You might not know that all 911s have always had 5 dials for the dashboard. So at the far left, you've got the oil temperature and pressure. Then you've got the speedometer and trip display, rev counter and gear selector. Then you've got the digital display that you can cycle through. And then over at the far right, you've got the water temp and the fuel gauge. So that's a pretty neat display. It's always been that way, and it will probably always stay that way. So the digital display can be controlled by the stalk just here, and you can cycle it through your audio, your telephone, your navigation map, which is kind of cool, navigation directions, trip information, tire pressures, sport chrono. This car has the optional sport chrono system, G-force meter, and your sort of temperatures and things digitally should you prefer. So there's quite a lot of information you can have on there, as well as sort of settings and going through things, and it's all in German at the moment, but let's just say there's a lot that you can show. Then you can see the steering wheel that I was mentioning, and the toggle selector that works really, really neatly going through the different modes, and then you press it to get the sport response, and you can see the pressure bar at the top. We'll cancel that, put it back through the different modes depending how you want it. Oh yeah, I didn't mention there's a digital speedo in the center. That's fairly obvious. So over to the left, memory seats, windows and mirror controls, light controls, the key that goes in there. I'll show you just quickly that seat control panel that I mentioned earlier, with all of the different stuff you can change. To open the engine bay, to open the bonnet, those buttons are just on there. Bose sound system in here, which is rather good too. Decent sized glove box, the world's most over-engineered cup holders. I've shown you this before, but they are really cool. Very nerdy little thing, but love them very much. You've got storage buckets in the door pocket as well as those front pockets, so plenty of storage space. And then you can see loosely in the back, nice Guards red, or red seat belts to go with the Guards red paint. But back here, let's just say there's not a whole lot of space between the seats. Nice visibility out the rear, in fact good visibility sort of everywhere really. Decent mirrors looking over those sort of very strong 911 arches. Up top, light control, near borderless rear view mirror, sun visor, mirror for the driver, more or less as you expect. So everything in here works really, really nicely. Heated seats, all your climate controls, but here for example you can see what I was saying, it's just a little bit awkward if you need to change something, or if you want to put it back on auto. The button to put the whole nav back on auto is over there, which is hard to see. This system though, which is rather nifty, we'll go back home, touch system. You've got all of your usual kind of stuff you'd expect to see in here. Let's come in closer so you can see that. Your sort of media controls if you want to go through your different devices, phone control. There's a SIM card slot in here along with 2 SD cards, nav, or you can sort of hotkey obviously any of these straight to the map. Car info, you've got some settings and details, general stuff in here if you want to change things and set them up in a different way. That's all available to you. So that all more or less works as you expect it. You can have audio from iPod, Bluetooth, all of the usual kind of stuff. So everything in here works pretty neatly. The buttons I mentioned earlier, wing up, and all of that. Got an armrest back here, shallow armrest, but charging pad for your phone on here if you have a phone that's compatible, and a USB port at the back as well. So let's fire it off, I suppose. Engine off. Let's just quickly open the boot, open the bonnet, and we'll run around and have a look at those two while we are here. So out we hop. There's not too much you can see in the boot, to be honest. This lifts up. That's all you can see. 3 litre engine, your oil and water there, some fans, but not a whole lot else, unfortunately. So we might as well close that back down. That is it. The boot of a 911. If we come round to the bonnet though, you'll see that in here I've got a lot of junk, so please excuse the junk, we're travelling, but you can get a decent amount of stuff down there in the front. No shortage if you're going away for a short period, and you can obviously put stuff in the back seat if that's what you want as well. Press the middle to close it up. So I think that's a pretty comprehensive tour of the Porsche 911 Carrera in this instance, in the Guards Red. The car I've definitely enjoyed driving here, and I'm loving walking around here, listening to the noise of the race cars of the 24 Hours of Le Mans. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed the video, guys. I hope you've enjoyed taking a proper look at the 911. If you have any thoughts, let me know in the comments down below. But that is it for this time. I'll catch up with you again very soon. Cheers.